This month, May, we're talking about spiritual laws and how to use them. So let me do a brief recap of where we've been so far this year. In 2018, as you've heard, we're celebrating 100 years of teaching the science of mind, which is the name of our teaching. And we've been exploring what does it mean to live a spiritual life from different angles. We've been using the book, Living the Science of Mind, a very easy to read, beautiful book by our founder, Ernest Holmes. And we've selected topics from there such as affirmative thinking and how to do it. What role does emotion play in our spiritual work? What is the will of God and how to align with it? What is my personal self and how does that compare to that part of me which intersects with everything else? How does my thinking help create my tomorrow, the greater yet to be of my tomorrow? And if you've missed any of that and you'd like to catch up, and this is particularly for our video watching audience and our radio listening audience, you can go to www.cslsr.org, where you will find a complete library of all of our videos. As well as, and maybe you don't know this, there is a place where you can subscribe to receive podcasts free in different formats so that they can be delivered to you automatically as they become available. And not only that, you can supplement your spiritual exploration with these free 1-hour classes on the science of mind, Wednesday nights, 7 p.m., free to anyone, no registration required. And also, our formal classes that are part of our education ministry begin mid-May. I'm talking about the 10 to 12-week courses that are focused attention, immersion on how to use and apply the science of mind. Some examples of the classes that are coming up. The Essential Ernest Holmes. It's based on the book by the same title, and what the author did, he went through all of the writings of our founder, Ernest Holmes, and collected his ideas into categories. So if you wanted to know what did he think about the afterlife, it's there in one group. What did he think when it comes to social activism? It's out there in one group. And so that's what that class is about, to get a more solid relationship with the mind of our founder, so to speak. The other class, the creative process in the individual, also based on a book by the same title. This book, written by one of the most important influencers in our whole movement of New Thought, Thomas Troward, who took the time to study what happens once a thought is thought, and what happens between that and when it becomes a reality. What is the process there, and what is it that causes it to be so? Very powerful stuff. And as we move through the year, whatever way you engage, I'm hoping that you will realize that when it comes to spirituality, there is no one size fits all. Rather, we must each discover our own spiritual path. We must be sure that our thinking is clear, not lazy. We must be careful that we don't get sloppy and accept someone else's idea of what a spiritual life means. In other words, we must examine and test what we think to make sure it's worth thinking, because it makes a beneficial impact on our life. So in other words, our work then is about moving from reaching and wishing and hoping to knowing. And as unique as we are on our spiritual path, I'm guessing that we have certain things in common. I'm guessing we probably all want to live with confidence and assurance that we do know how to meet life's challenges and joys when they show up. And for that, it is useful to know what the rules are. I'm talking about spiritual laws right now, so we can work with them and not against them. Now, I'm not going to ask you if you've ever worked against the law, but maybe you know someone who has, and you've watched how that plays out. You know, my friends, they call me a rule follower, and I am. I'm proud of it. I'm a goody two-shoes. I am. It frustrates them, but it does not frustrate me because I've already learned what happens when I work against the rules. It creates all kinds of unnecessary complications, some of them quite serious. Recently, I was in Peru, in the amazing and exciting and beautiful city of Cusco, which is higher than 11,000 feet in altitude. Really, really high. And there are some rules at that altitude that if you don't know about them, can make your visit miserable. And it's not that these rules are personal. They haven't been implemented to make the tourist life unbearable. It's just that's the way of things at that altitude. Here they are. Rule number 1. A high altitude has got something to do with dehydration. So don't drink alcohol on the first minute you arrive. Rule number 2, dehydration causes sluggish digestion. So don't eat heavy food, as tempting as it is. So me, the rule follower, didn't follow the rules. Had a lovely glass of Peruvian Malbec wine. First night. Delicious. Followed by a hefty local Peruvian meal. Heavy. Delicious. Who can resist? And it made me suffer for 4 straight days. According to the rules. Do you see what I mean? See, I told myself, I'm experienced now. I've been here a couple of times before. I don't need to follow the rules. I'm above them. Thing is, I was wrong. The rules are the rules. So whether you are a saint or a sinner, or a poet or a preacher, or a president or a plumber, whether you are important or not so important, whether you are good or bad, the rules still apply to you. Now you know I'm building a case for spiritual rules, which are different from society's rules. Spiritual rules. I sometimes like to call them life laws. The idea is that they work the same on everyone, whether you deserve it or not. So here's some homework for you for this week. Here's your homework. What life laws do you already know about? And are there any that you are pretending you don't know? You know, like working around them? Why is everybody looking around? I'll tell you what I mean, so you don't think I'm just judging you. I will say that I have had enough evidence in my life by now to completely accept and affirm that what is in my thinking really matters. But sometimes I like to pretend that I don't know that rule. You know, then I'll act all surprised when things start to match my attitude. Oh, how did that happen? It's them. I'll give you another example of something I believe is a spiritual law. I think so. Well, you can experiment with it yourself and you can test it and see if it's so. It's this. This is what I think it is. Giving is the mirror image of receiving. Bam. Can't have one with the other. They go together. And the way you can test this law is, for example, to give what you want to receive more of and see if it makes a difference. You want more consideration in life? Consider other people in a mindful, precise, focused way, and then check. Want more flow of cash in your life? Well, then share your treasure in a responsible, mindful way, free from control and superstition. Want more love in your life? Then start to be kind, more kind than you ever were before. Want more peace in the world? Well, bring that into play, and so on. And you know, when you start to watch that and how it works, you will realize, I think what so many people realize, is that it is impossible to live your life one-sidedly, only expecting something, not contributing anything. Expecting something for nothing, taking but not giving, or giving but not allowing anyone to give back to you. You start to see that you really do have something very powerful that you can use in your life, and it's dependable. Oh, it's the stuff that makes the stuck parts flow in life. It changes everything, and you've got to use it. And if you do start to watch carefully how giving and receiving work together, then you'll notice, and I believe like everybody does who looks into life this way, you'll start to notice you can't trick the system. You can't do it. You can't pretend to be a giver. You have to actually be one. In other words, you have to be sincere, because what is in your mind and what is in your heart is what the law works through. And some people think, like I did in Peru, I'm an exception. I can work around this. I can get something without giving a thing. But everyone who's willing to pay attention will discover the law is coming for you. You want another example? It's very quiet in here. Here's another example. It'll be more cheerful. Here's another life law, spiritual law. I think it is one. You can test it for yourself. Check it out. It's this. Truth is freedom. And the opposite of truth is bondage. Oh, that one's a good one. Sometimes I can hear myself telling myself, oh, it would be so convenient if that weren't so today. Just a little deception that doesn't count. I'd love to not be subject to that particular rule right now. And I hear people say, but it's not fair. I see other people getting away with lies, people in places of authority and power. Guess what? They won't get away with it. The law is coming for them. You can count on it. It always works out in the end, I'm sure. That's why I don't mess with it. One of my colleagues said, we don't teach that there is a devil as an independent power. We don't need one. We've got the law. Oh, and here's the fun part. There's no universal list of spiritual laws that you can consult. There's no manual. Instructions are not included. We have to each figure it out for ourselves. We get to wade through all the ideas and opinions of other people and balance it with what we carefully and sincerely and intelligently observe about the way it's working in our lives. And I learned in Science of Mind that there is a wisdom in each one of us, that we are each in direct contact with the infinite, and that we can depend on that inner contact. with the infinite. We can depend on it to look into our lives and to investigate the way it works. And that when we do investigate the way it works, it is most likely that we will come to similar conclusions that other seekers before us have come to because of the unity of all life. And yet we will all see and understand it in our own way because of the diversity of all life. How beautiful is that? There is one universal truth, and each one of us sees it, expresses it, and experiences it in our own way. So I learned I've got to be careful of other people telling me what's the way. I've certainly got to be careful of people who tell me that their way is the only way because they read it somewhere. So many of us have had other people's thinking poured into our heads. Ideas that we have been told to believe without question. Now, hopefully, in everybody's life, there comes a time when we ask ourselves, what if? What if it's not how my family believed? What if it is not how the movies make it seem? What if I'm wise enough to be able to look into life sincerely and understand it? Others have done that before us. They've looked into life and they have discovered the spiritual laws and they found them there. And we call those people mystics and teachers, and then we follow them without question. That now we know better. We know we have to be careful not to follow anyone without doing our own due diligence and personal checking and experimentation. Don't follow me. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, said, we all have access to the parent mind. Isn't that beautiful? And that if we use this direct access, we'll have more confidence to be able to stop accepting other people's ideas, and we will discover the way life works. What are examples of the spiritual laws that other seekers like you and me have discovered? Well, it depends on, there's no standard definition. It depends on who's describing. But I can take a guess at some of them, and maybe you can too. For example, here's one. What goes around comes around. Or how about your perception determines how you experience life around you? How about something like that? Or how about this one? My thought is creative, and the sum total of what is in my thinking attracts to it that which matches it. Something like that. Or what about this one? Your mind is part of the creative genius of the universe, and there is no off switch. Or how about this one? Life is not how it appears to be, especially if judged by how it appears to be. And we ought to be able to take these ideas and test them for ourselves, experiment with them, and ask ourselves, what happens when I obey the law? Look, if I change my attitude according to law, does my experience of life change too? Can I check that coming around? If I contribute from what I have with heart and without superstition or control, do I see that coming around and showing up in my life with a kind of expansion in my living? Is that real? When I purposefully start thinking about other people more beautifully, do they change? And when I start purposefully talking to myself more beautifully, do I change? What happens when I stop harming other people in my thought? Can I track the impact of that in my life? And so that's what we're up to this month. That's what we're doing. We're exploring the way things work spiritually. It's a very interesting month. Next week, we're going to be talking about the sequence of creative order. How does a thing come to be? After a thought is thought, what are the steps between that and the result of it showing up in form? And what is it that's thinking in me anyway? Are my thoughts my own, or did I borrow them? Oh, it's good. And then the next week, we're talking about the law of mental equivalence. You've got to love this one. In other words, this is about what my mind has accepted as normal. Call that a mental equivalent. And it raises the question, can I change what my mind has accepted as normal? And how do I do that? And what's the difference between what I say I want and the thoughts and ideas that I dwell in? Oh. How do I change the undercurrent of thoughts and images in my mind that I have become so used to that they're like a personal friend? And then on May 27, we're going to be talking about principle and precedent, which is all about the idea that the past is not always a good guide for our life choices today. It's about the idea that just because something is the way it is and has always happened like that, it cannot and does not limit the creative genius of the universe, which has the ability to transcend everything that has gone before through us. And for me to get in sync with that. And finally, this week we'll remind ourselves that personal change in life really isn't all up to me. It's not through effort on my behalf, but it is a result of a creative power that is in me, like it is in you, that works on our behalf when we turn our direction into the greater yet to be. It's very exciting. I invite you now to breathe in and to exhale, letting your eyes close. As we take a moment in spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer, if you like, there is one creative power we call the living spirit, almighty, all-powerful, that is in and through all creation, but never limited by what has been created, what has gone before, what is to come. It is the ground of all being, not limited to this form or this planet or this reality, everywhere present in equal proportion. And as I speak this word of prayer, I am remembering that that is what I am made of. I live and breathe and have my being inside of that infinite field of potential, as does every person in this room who is watching this video or listening to the radio. And just by speaking this word, then, I have realigned myself with something that is true and enduring, that there is within me a power that transcends appearances, that is free-flowing. And so I realize that as I drop all ideas of separation or confusion or less thanness, I am making space in my own consciousness for me to be aligned with the way it works, the spiritual laws of this existence. And what a joy it is to yield to that. And I trust that as I speak these words, that they are backed up by my acceptance, that they are supported by the warmth of my conviction, and I trust that that is what law flows through. And because so many times my prayers have been demonstrated, I have additional trust and expectation today that this one will be also. So I act as if I'm in a different state of mind right now. I expect life to respond to me in a more harmonious way. I expect to be guided. I expect to know who I am. I expect to know what serves me and others. And I expect to easily and effortlessly drop anything that has inhibited me in the past. This fills me with tremendous happiness and ease. And I know that this gratitude, well, it's the power that makes everything work in the universe. And so I dwell in it. This gratitude is a form of openness and acceptance. And it reminds me to release this word of prayer, not to have any effort, not to cling to any outcome, but to remember that according to law it is done to me. And because it has been spoken, I now consider it to be done. And together we say, and so it is.